Hi, my name is Robert. Today I'm reading Season of the Sandstorm by Mary Pope Osborne. So if you're sitting comfortably, let's begin. Prologue. Once one day in Frog Creek, Pennsylvania, a mysterious trash appeared in the woods. A brother and sister named Jack and Annie soon learned that the trash was magic. It could take them to any time and place in history. They also learned that the trash belonged to Morgan Le Fay, a magic librarian from the legendary realm of Camelot. After Jack and Annie traveled to many adventures for Morgan, Merlin the magician began sending them on Merlin missions. In the treehouse, with help from two young sorcerers named Teddy and Kathleen, Jack and Annie visited 4 mythical places and found valuable objects to help save Camelot. On their next 4 missions, Jack and Annie were told they must travel to real times and places in history and prove to Merlin that they could use magic wisely. They just have returned from a successful mission in the city of Venice over 250 years ago, and now they are waiting to hear from Merlin again. Chapter 1, The Golden Age. Jack put his math homework aside. He opened the drawer beside his bed and pulled out a small handmade book. For the 100th time he stared at the title of the cover, 10 Magic Rhymes for Jack and Annie from Teddy and Kathleen. For weeks, Jack had kept the book hidden in his drawer, wondering when he and Annie would be able to use its magic again. The book's 10 rhymes were to be used on 4 missions, and each rhyme could be used only once. Jack and Annie had already used 2 rhymes on a mission in Venice, Italy. Jack! Annie rushed into Jack's room. Her eyes were shining. Bring the book, let's go. Where's she, Jack? You know where. Come on, Annie called as she ran downstairs. Jack quickly put Teddy and Kathleen's book into his backpack. He pulled on his jacket and took off down the stairs. Annie was waiting on the porch. Hurry, she cried. Wait, how do you know it's there, said Jack. Because I just saw it, said Annie. She hurried down the porch steps and across the yard. You saw it? Actually, you saw it? Yelled Jack as he followed Annie through the chilly afternoon air. Yes, yes, Annie yelled. When, shouted Jack? Just now, said Annie. I was walking home from the library and I had this feeling, so I went and looked. It's waiting for us. Jack and Annie raced into the Frog Creek woods. They ran between the budding trees over the fresh green moss of early spring until they came to the tallest oak. See, Annie? Yes, breathed Jack. He stared up at the magic treehouse. Its rope ladder dangled above the mossy ground. Annie started climbing up. Jack followed. When they got inside the treehouse, Jack pulled off his backpack. Look, a book and a letter, said Annie. She picked up the folded leather from the floor. Jack picked up a book with a golden cover. Baghdad, he said. He showed the book's cover to Annie. Its title was The Golden Age of Baghdad. A golden age, said Annie. That sounds cool. Let's go. Wait, we should read our letter first, said Jack. Right, said Annie. She unfolded the paper. Merlin's handwriting, she said. She read aloud. Dear Jack and Annie of Frog Creek, your mission is to journey to Baghdad long ago and help the Caliph spread wisdom to the world. To success you must be humble and use your magic wisely. Follow these. Wait, what's a caliph, said Jack? And what's Merlin mean? Spread wisdom to the world. That's a big responsibility. I know, said Annie. I don't know, said Annie. Let me finish, she kept reading. Follow these instructions. Ride a ship of the desert on a cold, starry night. Ride through the dust in hot morning light. Though find a horse on a dome, the one who sees... Find a horse on a dome, the one who sees all, in the heart of the city, behind the third wall, beneath birds who sing in the room of the tree. Read a friend you once knew and a new friend to be. Remember that life is full of surprises. Return to the trash before the moon rises. That sounds pretty easy, said Annie. No, it doesn't, said Jack. All these instructions are mysterious. We don't know what any of them mean. We'll find out when we get there, said Annie. But first, we have to get there. Make the wish. Okay, said Jack. He pointed to the cover of the book. I wish we could go to the golden age of Baghdad, he said. The wind started to blow. The chairs on his fingers spun faster and faster, then everything was still, absolutely still. Chapter 2, Nowhere. Jack felt hot. He opened his eyes. Burning sunlight was flooding into the treehouse. He and Annie were wearing long robes tied with cords. They wore white headcloths and a pointy slip-on shoes. Jack's backpack had turned into a leather bag. We look like characters in the book Aunt Mary gave us, said Annie. Tales from the Arabian Nights. Yeah, like Aladdin and Ali Baba, said Jack. Shading their eyes from the bright sunlight, Jack and Annie squinted out the window. They had landed in the spiky crown of a palm tree. It was the tallest tree in the clump of palm trees. Thorny shrubs and sparse green grass grew under the trees. A small spring bubbled up from the ground. Surrounding the clump of trees were miles and miles of scorching sand. This doesn't look like a golden age to me, said Annie. Yeah, and where's Baghdad, said Jack. He picked up the research book and opened it to the first page. He read aloud. From 762 AD to 1258 AD, the Arab world had a golden age. During that time, a ruler known as the Caliph governed an empire that stretched for thousands of miles. The capital city of Arab Empire was the city of Baghdad, an important center for learning and trade. Jack looked up. So the Caliph is a ruler, he said, and he probably lives in Baghdad. Yeah, but how do we get there? Asked Annie. Patience, said Jack. Remember on our last mission we learned that we have to do things in order, one thing at a time? He read the first part of Merlin's instructions. Ride a ship of the desert on a cold starry night. Ride through the dust and hot morning light. I wonder what a ship of a desert is, Jack said, looking up. Well, whatever it is, I'm sure we'll find it eventually, said Annie slowly, as if she were trying to be patient. We could just sit here and keep an eye out for a big boat, or what, said Jack. Maybe we could use one of Teddy and Kathleen's book of magic rhymes. Not yet, said Jack. Merlin said to use our magic wisely. We just got here. We used 2 rhymes on our last missions, and we only have 8 left to divide between 3. Okay, Annie broke in. We can only use a rhyme when there is absolutely nothing else we can do. Right, said Jack. So, said Annie, what do you think we can do? We could start walking, said Jack. Walk where, said Annie? Which way is Baghdad? Jack looked out the window. Beyond the palm trees was nothing but sand and sky. In the distance were lonely dunes. The desert was eerily silent. Jack couldn't think of anything else they could do. We could look in the rhyme book, he said. Jack pulled out the book of magic rhymes out of his pack. He and Annie read down the table of contents. Make a stone come alive, read Annie. We did that on our last mission. We can't do that. It wouldn't help us anyway, said Jack. He looked at the rhyme. Bend down, he said. We've already done that one. Turn into ducks, said Annie. She looked at Jack. No, he said. Mend what cannot be mended, read Annie. Nothing needs mended, said Jack. Oh, how about this one, said Annie. Make helpers appear out of nowhere. Well, said Jack, maybe. Come on, it's perfect, said Annie. That's where we are, nowhere, and we could sure use some helpers. Okay, said Jack. I'll read the line Teddy wrote. You read Kathleen's line in her Selkie language. Okay, said Annie. She turned to the page with the rhyme. She held the book out to Jack. Jack read in a loud, clear voice. From far beyond, send helpers here. Then Annie read. Hi-he bye, hi-he here. The second that Annie finished the rhyme, wind gusted in from the desert, blowing a cloud of sand through the window. The wind shook the palm trees. Sand blew into Annie's eyes. Ow, she said. Get back, cried Jack. Jack and Annie jumped away from the window. They pressed themselves against the wall and covered their faces. Gritty sand kept blowing into the treehouse. It's a sandstorm, said Jack. The hot sand piled into drifts all over the floor. Then the wind died down as quickly as it had started. The palm trees stopped shaking. Jack and Annie looked out the window. The air was thick with grainy dust, making it hard to see, but the sand was still. I think it's over, said Annie. I hope so, said Jack. Why didn't our magic rhyme work? It sent to Sandstorm instead, not helpers. I don't know, said Annie. Maybe we said it wrong. Jack brushed the sand off the research book and looked up sandstorms in the index. He found the right page and read, "The season of the sandstorm begins in the desert in mid-February and continues all spring. Wind can blow as fast as 40 miles per hour. Sands can easily cause travelers to lose their way in the desert." "I don't get it," said Jack. "We don't need to lose our way. We have to find our way." Just then, the sound of bells came from outside. Jack and Annie looked out the window. Through the haze, they saw 4 riders perched high on the humps of camels. The riders were brightly colored robes. Behind them, a dozen more camels were tied head to tail and loaded with saddlebags. As the camels swung from side to side, bells tinkled from around their necks. Annie grinned. "Helpers," she said. Chapter 3. The Moon. Annie stuck her head out of the treehouse window. "Hey," she called. "Shh," said Jack, pulling her back in. "Don't let them see us up here. It's too hard to explain the treehouse. Let's go down." "Good point," said Annie. She handed Merlin's letter to Jack and started down the rope ladder. Jack grabbed his shoulder bag. He put the leather inside, then added the research book and rhyme book. He slung the leather bag across his chest and climbed down. When he stepped onto the ground, Jack twisted the rope ladder behind the tree trunk so it wouldn't be noticed. "Okay," he said to Annie. "Hey!" Annie called again, waving. She and Jack stepped out into the open. The camel riders headed toward the palm trees. The man in the lead made his camel kneel. As he climbed off, Jack and Annie ran over to him. The man wore a long white robe. He had a black beard and a stern dark eyes. "Who are you?" he asked, unsmiling. "From where do you come?" "I am Annie, and this is my brother Jack," said Annie. "Our home is far away in Frog Creek, Pennsylvania." "I have not heard of such a place," the man said. "How do you come to be in the desert alone?" Jack didn't know what to say. "We were riding with our family," said Annie. "We stopped here. My brother and I took a nap behind those trees. When we woke, everyone was gone. They left us by mistake. See, we have a really big family. There are many brothers and sisters." "Annie," said Jack. She was saying too much, he thought. The man looked concerned. Why have they not come back for you?" he said, gazing out at the desert. "I hope they did not get attacked by bandits." "Are there bandits around here?" asked Annie. "There are many bandits prowling the desert," said the man. Jack looked anxiously around the vast sandy plain. "That is why one must travel with others," the man said. "But I hope your family is safe and will return for you soon." "Excuse me," Annie said politely, "but who are you? How did you happen to come here?" "I am a merchant," the man said. "My caravan is traveling from the west when we surprised by a sudden sandstorm. It seemed to come from nowhere, but luckily it brought us to the oasis. We will rest and water our animals until the sun goes down. In the cool of the night, we will travel on to Baghdad." The caravan leader walked over to his men and spoke to them. They dismounted and started taking saddles off the camels. Annie turned to Jack. "See, our rhyme worked," she whispered. "The sandstorm was magic. It brought them on their way to Baghdad. But how do we get them to help us?" said Jack. "Well, Merlin said we should be humble, so let's offer to help them," said Annie. She walked over to the caravan leader. He was filling a canvas bucket with water from a small spring. "Excuse me," said Annie. "We wondered if we could help you." The man gave her a quick smile. "Thank you," he said. "If you could gather dates, it would be most appreciated. My men are very hungry." He handed Annie 2 large baskets. "No problem," she said. "We'll gather dates." Annie carried the baskets over to Jack. "Do you know what date is?" she whispered. "We're supposed to gather them." "I'll look it up," said Jack. With his back to the camel riders, he pulled out the research book and looked up dates. He read, "Dates are known as the fruit of the desert. They hang in bunches from date palms. People gather dates by shaking the trunk of the tree. Not only do dates are an important food, but wood and leaves from the date palm tree are used to make—" "Okay, got it," interrupted Annie, putting the basket down. Let's start shaking the trees. Jack put the book away and looked around. For the first time, he noticed bunches of brown fruit hanging from the trees. He grabbed hold of the nearest trunk, and he grabbed the trunk from the other side. Together, they shook the trees until dates began to fall. In the desert heat, Jack and Annie went from tree to tree, shaking each one and gathering the dates that fell to the ground. By the time they had filled their baskets, the trees were casting long shadows over the oasis. Tired and sweaty, Jack and Annie carried their heavy baskets back to the caravan leader, who was boiling water over a fire of twigs. "Ah, very good," he said. "Thank you, Jack and Annie." "You're welcome," said Annie. "What else can we do for you?" "You should rest from the heat now," the man said. "Would you like to sit and have tea with us?" "Sure," said Annie. "By the way, what's your name?" "My name is very long," the man said with a smile. "You can call me Mamoon." While the camels grazed, Mamoon and his men sat on a wooden rug spread over the grass. They shared dates and tea with Jack and Annie. The dark plump fruit was sweet and chewy. The tea was strong but good. In the fiery red glow of the sun, Jack watched the grazing camels. He thought the humped animals looked really funny. They had knobby knees, big clumsy feet, and little ears that twitched. Some camels smacked their droopy lips as they drank water. Others gobbled down whole branches of thorn bushes without chewing. "Don't the thorns hurt their throats?" Jack asked Mamoon. "No," the caravan leader said. "Their mouths are so tough. They can eat anything, sticks, bones. Even if we let them eat our tents and saddlebags, they would," the camel rider said. Jack and Annie laughed. "What's in your saddlebag?" said Annie. "Our bags are filled with goods from Greece, Turkey, and Syria," said Mamoon. "We have many things, jewelry, beads, and precious spices, such as cinnamon, pepper, and vanilla. We are taking everything to Baghdad to sell." "We have to go to Baghdad too," said Annie. "We have to meet with the Caliph." The camel riders chuckled as if they thought Annie was making a joke. Only Mamoon did not laugh. "Your family is to meet with the Caliph?" he said. "No," said Annie, "just Jack and me. We have to help him spread wisdom to the world." "Annie," warned Jack. The camel riders laughed loudly. "What's so funny?" said Annie. "The Caliph does not meet with children," said the young man. "He is the most powerful person in the world." "Oh," said Annie, frowning. The news worried Jack too. Mamoon looked at Jack and Annie with a curious expression. "Night will soon be upon us. Since your family has not yet returned, would you like to travel with us to Baghdad?" he said. "You have journeyed this far by camels. I trust you to ride camels the rest of the way." "Sure we can," said Annie. "We love camels." "We do," thought Jack. "Good. We love our ships of the desert, too," said Mamoon. "We will set sail on them soon." "So that's what ships of the desert are," Annie whispered to Jack. "Camels," thought Jack. Oh, brother. Chapter 4, Ships of the Desert. The camel riders all silently watched the sunset over the fairway dunes. As the fiery ball slipped beneath the horizon, the desert was flooded with red light. As soon as the sun disappeared, the air grew much cooler. Mamoon stood up. "It is time to go," he said. The camel riders put out their small fire. In the growing darkness, Mamoon held the saddle up their camels and loaded them with baggage. Then Mamoon came over to Jack and Annie. "You can ride those two sisters," he said, pointing to two camels kneeling in the sand. "Come on, then come to the front of the line to ride with me." Jack and Annie walked over to the two camel sisters. Each had reins hanging from their necks. Saddles made from colorful cushions were piled high on their humps. Annie patted the worry tan colored fur of one of the camels. The camel looked at Annie with his big eyes and fluttered her thick eyelashes. "Hey, cutie," said Annie. The other camel nuzzled Annie's neck. "Hey, beauty," she said to the other camel. "You want some attention too?" Cutie and beauty, thought Jack. He didn't find either camel particularly cute or beautiful. and he climbed onto Cutie's saddle cushion and picked up the reins. "Let's go," she said. Cutie rose awkwardly up from her kneeling position to a full stand. "Oh, wow," said Annie, towering over Jack. "She's really tall." Jack started to climb onto Beauty, but the camel caught the end of his head cloth and began chewing on it. "Stop that," said Jack, pulling the cloth away from her. Beauty opened her mouth wide and flashed rows of sharp teeth. Jack drew back. "Don't be afraid," said Annie. "Easy for you to say that. Yours likes you." "Don't worry. Beauty likes you too," said Annie. "I can tell." Annie's camel began ambling toward the other camels waiting to head off into the desert. "Come on, Jack. It's really fun once you're moving." Annie called. "Fun," muttered Jack. "Right." He held on to the ends of his head cloth and put his leg over Beauty's hump. The camel eyed him suspiciously. She swished her tail, slapping Jack in the back. "Hey," said Jack. He tried to get comfortable in the saddle cushion, but Beauty spat on him and made a weird screeching sound. "Quiet," said Jack. He hooked his shoulder bag onto the saddle horn. When he was finally settled, Beauty turned her head and started chewing on his leather bag. "No, don't," yelled Jack. He tried to pull the bag away, but Beauty played tug of war. "Come on, let go," said Jack. "Give it back, stupid." "Do you really think she is stupid?" Jack jumped. Mamoon was riding up behind him and was watching as he tried to get his bag away from Beauty. Jack was embarrassed. She won't let go of my stuff," said Jack. Mamoon grabbed the strap out of Jack's bag. He clucked his tongue and the camel let go. She groaned as Mamoon hooked their bag back onto the saddle horn. "For thousands of years, camels like this one have carried people across the desert," said Mamoon. "She is truly a miracle of nature." "Some miracle," thought Jack. "She can drink 2 barrels of water in 10 minutes," said Mamoon, "and then go for weeks without drinking again. She can live for many days without food, too." "Really?" said Jack. "She is well suited for traveling in the desert," said Mamoon. "Her thick eyebrows protect her eyes from the glare of the sun. Her long eyelashes and the fur around her ears keep out the wind-blown sand." "Cool," Jack said softly. "Her feet are so tough they do not feel the heat of the desert," said Mamoon. "And they are so big they keep her from sinking down into the loose sand." Said Jack. "She can carry 500 pounds of baggage on her back," said Mamoon, "and travel 100 miles in a single day." "That's a lot," murmured Jack. Mamoon tugged on the camel's reins and clucked his tongue. Beauty breathed heavily as she rose up and her long, powerful legs to her full height. Mamoon looked at Jack. "We must respect her and honor her," he said. "In many ways, she is superior to us." "No?" Jack nodded. He thought of the words Merlin's letter. "To success in your mission, you must be humble." He patted the camel. "Good girl, Beauty." Mamoon clucked his tongue again to coax the camel forward. Perched high on his saddle, Jack rocked from side to side. He did not feel safe at all, but he stayed calm. Beauty ambled over to Cutie. The two sisters stood together and snorted. The desert sky was bright with stars. Mamoon called to his men and the caravan started moving forward. The camels rocked with a swaying motion. They moved 2 big feet on one side, then 2 big feet on the other. Jack gripped the horn on his saddle as his ship of the desert rocked from left to right. "Isn't this fun?" Annie said, rocking alongside him. "Sort of," said Jack, shivering. Actually, he wasn't having fun at all. He felt seasick and was freezing in the night air. Also, he was worried about the mission. Would the Caliph meet with them? If he did, how could they help him spread wisdom to the world? And if Baghdad was very far away, how would they get there? How would they ever find their way back to the treehouse? Mamoon slowed his camel until he was riding between Jack and Annie. "When I was a boy, I spent many cool nights in the desert riding with my father on journeys in the west," he said. "At first I thought camels were foolish. I always longed for more blankets and for a smoother ride. I wished to be back in my Baghdad in my own warm bed. Jack smiled. He liked the caravan leader. But over time I have come to love the cold desert nights, said Mamoon. Now when I am sleeping in my warm bed in Baghdad, I long to be here instead. I wish to be reading the wind and the stars. How do you read the stars, said Annie. They have their own language, said Mamoon. At this moment we are heading toward the east, toward the goat star. He pointed at the sky. Jack couldn't tell which star was the goat star, but he was filled with wonder. Thousands of tiny lights twinkled in the black dome of the night. There were more stars than Jack had ever imagined. Some looked close enough to touch. Mamoon started singing a song. The other camel riders joined in. Jack couldn't understand the words, but the tune was soothing. The camels seemed to sway in the music. Jack stopped worrying about how they would get back to the treehouse, and he found himself actually enjoying the fresh desert air. He started to relax. Jack, Annie said softly, guess what? We just solved the first mystery in Merlin's leather. Ride the ship above the desert on a cold, starry night. Yeah, Jack said happily, and it's really fun. Suddenly a fierce shout came from the distance. Jack sat straighter. Hear thumping. Bandits! One of the camel riders shouted. Chapter 5. Bandits. Jack looked around wildly. Dark figures on horses were galloping across the sand toward them. They were yelling and shouting. Oh no, cried Jack. What should we do? We will fight them off, said Mamoon. You and Annie take this box and ride to the dunes. Mamoon pulled a flat wooden box out of one of his saddlebags. He thrust the box into Jack's hands. Hurry, ride as fast as you can. Protect it with your lives. Jack frantically tried to stuff the box into his shoulder bag, but Mamoon slapped the backs of Jack and Annie's camels and they bolted forward. The rein slipped from Jack's hand and he grabbed the saddle horn with one hand and clutched the wooden box to his chest with the other. He held on for his life as Beauty galloped across the dark desert. Annie's camel ran beside Jack's. Like two racehorses, Beauty and Cutie thundered across the sand toward the distant dunes. Rocking crazily from side to side, Jack clung to the box. Slow down, he yelled, please. It was no use. Beauty ran like the wind. She and her sister practically flew over the desert under the starry sky. Jack wanted the camels to stop, but at the same time he wanted to get far away from the bandits. Finally, the camels began to slow their pace. Jack looked back. He couldn't see the caravan at all, and no one seemed to be following them. When the two camels reached the dunes, they began plodding around the steep hills. Once they were nestled safely between tall drifts, they stopped to rest. Beauty grunted. Cutie snored. Thanks, girls. Thanks, Annie said, panting. I hope Mamoon and the others are safe from the bandits, said Jack. Me too, said Annie. What's in the box he gave us? Jack held up the flat wooden box. I don't know, he said, but Mamoon said we should protect it with our lives. Maybe it's a precious spice, Annie. I hope it's more than that, said Jack. I'd hate to risk my lives for cinnamon or pepper. Should we look, said Annie? I don't know, said Jack. Mamoon might not want us to. But what if... Do you think we could protect it better if we knew what it was, said Annie. Maybe, said Jack. He could see Annie's point. Okay. Jack tried to open the lid of the box, but he couldn't. In the dark, his finger pressed against the keyhole. Forget it, he said. It's locked. Shh, listen, said Annie. Jack listened. He heard a high-pitched moaning sound. It sounded like music from a violin, wafting through the dry sand dunes. The haunting music grew louder. What is that, said Jack. Uh-oh, said Annie. Now I hear something else. Jack held his breath. He heard hoofs galloping over the desert. The bandits, he said. We have to hide the box, said Annie. Where, said Jack? In the sand, said Annie. She clucked her tongue and Cutie knelt to the ground. Beauty knelt too. Jack and Annie jumped off their saddle cushions and started digging in the sand. The sound of hoofbeats grew louder and louder. Jack and Annie dug frantically. They threw sand behind them like puppies digging in the dirt. That's deep enough, said Jack. He placed the wooden box into the hole they had dug. Then he and Annie pushed piles of sand back onto it. When they stood up, Annie gasped, "Look!" A dark figure on a camel was silhouetted against the starlit sky. The rider was winding his way through the dunes toward Jack and Annie. Jack's heart nearly pounded out of his chest. "Should we use the magics?" Annie asked. "We don't have time," said Jack. The rider drew closer until he stopped in front of him. "You're safe." "No," he said. "Mamoon," said Annie. Relief flooded through Jack. Jack laughed. "We're safe," he said. "And you're safe too." "My men fought well," said Mamoon. "The thieves fled with only a few bags of pepper and painted beads." "And we kept your box safe too," said Annie proudly. She knelt and dug in the sand until she uncovered the wooden box. She handed it to Mamoon. "Ah, very good," the caravan leader said. "What's in the box?" said Annie. "A precious treasure," said Mamoon. "I have brought it all the way from Greece, and I am taking it to Baghdad. Thank you both for guarding it with your lives. You are very special." "No problem," said Jack. He still wondered what was in the box. Gold, silver, precious jewels. But Mamoon did not say. He put the box back into his camel saddle bag. "Let us be on our way," he said. Jack climbed on top of his kneeling camel. He clicked his tongue. To his surprise, he was pleased when Beauty rose up to her tall legs. "We will catch up with the others in Baghdad," said Mamoon. "If all goes well, we will arrive in the city in the afternoon. We must head east toward the morning sun." Mamoon rode out of the dunes. Jack and Annie followed him. As the camels rocked through the chilly dawn, daylight shimmered over the sand. Mamoon, "Last night we heard strange sounds in the dunes," said Annie, "like music playing." "Ah, yes," said Mamoon, "the whistling sands. They were..." "And what were the whistling sands?" "What were the whistling sands?" Jack asked. "Some say it is magic," said Mamoon, "but I believe that all things have nature have a reason to exist. That is why I like the study of science. Science says we must observe our world. We must make experience and try to find out why things happen. We have learned the whistling sands are made by sand settling in the drifts." "Oh," said Annie, "I hoped it was magic." "Learning the reasons for things is magic," said Mamoon. "True knowledge brings light to the world, and that is a magical thing, no?" "Yes," said Jack, and he nodded thoughtfully. "I guess when you put it that way," she said. Swaying from side to side on their camels, the three riders traveled toward the dawn. As the sun rose higher and higher in the sky, the desert grew blazing hot. A dry wind whipped through the air, making snaky patterns in the sand. Mamoon halted his camel. He looked around and frowned. "What's wrong?" said Jack. "Are there any signs of bandits?" Mamoon shook his head. "No, it is the desert that worries me now," he said. "It is restless." He clucked his tongue and his camel began moving again. As they rode over the restless sands, the wind picked up loose sand and tossed it in the air. Jack and Annie lowered their heads to keep the sand from blowing in their eyes. Their headcloths flapped in the wind. More and more sand started blowing. The desert seemed to lie as if the sand shifted and swirled. Mamoon stopped again and looked about. The snaky patterns in the sand were blowing into the around curling patterns. Jack heard a weird moaning sound. "Is that the whistling sands again?" he asked hopefully. "No," said Mamoon. "This is the cry of a terrible sandstorm, and it will soon be upon us." Chapter 6. Sandblasted. In the distance, a haze of sand was spreading over the desert. As the wind picked up, the sky turned red and the haze thickened into a brown cloud. The cloud began gliding toward Jack, Annie, and Mamoon like a moving wall. "Get down! Lie on your bellies!" ordered Mamoon. "Quickly! Cover your faces with your headcloths!" Jack clucked his tongue. Beauty knelt to the ground, and Jack, Annie, and Mamoon jumped off their camels and lay down on the sand beside them. Jack tried desperately to cover his face with his headcloth, but the raging wind kept whipping the cloth away from his hands. The sky turned from red to black. The moaning sound turned into a rumbling. Jack looked up and saw the wind rip the saddlebag off Mamoon's kneeling camel. The bag hit the ground and fell open. The box bounced out and tumbled away into the driving wind. "The treasure!" cried Jack, but his voice was lost in the loudness of the wind. Jack raced across the desert as he jumped up and bolted after the box. Jack raced across the desert as the sand battered his body. The wind tried to push him down, but Jack ran with all his might until finally he caught up with the box and threw himself down on top of it. He grabbed the ends of his head scarf and covered his face. The sandstorm blasted over Jack, sounding like hoofbeats of 100 galloping camels. Jack's eyes burned. He felt as if he were suffocating. Slowly the thundering softened to a low rumbling. The rumbling faded to a moaning. The wind died down. The hot desert grew still and silent. Coughing, Jack rolled over and sat up. He had sand in his mouth, sand in his ears, and sand in his nose. He pulled off his glasses and rubbed his stinging eyes, but rubbing only made them worse. Blinking, Jack clutched the box and looked around for the others. The air was thick with dust. He had completely lost sense of direction. "Jack! Jack!" He heard Annie shout. Jack clutched the small wooden box and stood up. His legs were so wobbly he fell over it. "Annie! Annie!" he croaked. "Jack!" she called through the dust. "Where are you?" "Here," he said. "Where?" "Here." "There you are," said Annie, stumbling out of the haze. "Are you okay?" "I'm okay," said Jack. "Are you?" "Yes, I ran after you, Stanley." Her voice was hoarse, too. "I had to save the box," said Jack. "Where's Mamoon?" "I don't think he saw..." "I don't know," said Annie. "I don't think he saw us chase after the box." "Mamoon!" they shouted together. "Mamoon!" There was no answer. Peering through the haze, Jack heard thumping sounds. He and Annie turned around. The two camels were trotting toward them. "Beauty!" cried Annie. "Beauty!" Jack and Annie stumbled to their camels and grabbed the reins. "Thank you for finding us, Annie." "Yeah, thanks," said Jack, patting Beauty. "Mamoon!" they called. "Mamoon!" "He must have gone in the wrong direction to look for us," said Jack. "If we don't find him, how will we get to the Baghdad? And what will we do with the treasures?" asked Annie. "I don't know," said Jack. He held up the wooden box. "Look, the top's broken," said Annie. She pointed to a long crack running down the lid of the box. "I hope the treasure ones aren't hurt," said Jack. "Maybe we should check and see," said Annie. Jack took a deep breath. He still thought Mamoon might not want them to look inside the box, but his curiosity got the best of him. "Okay," he said. "I guess it wouldn't hurt to make sure it's all right." Jack pried apart the two pieces of wood and lifted them off. Inside the box was a book. A book, said Jack, surprised. He'd expected gold or jewels. He carefully lifted the book out of the box. It had a plain cover with no title. "It doesn't look like a precious treasure to me," said Annie. "Maybe the writing inside is the treasure," said Jack. He gently opened the lid. Inside were pages of thick yellow paper. The pages were bound with stitch and covered with writing on both sides. The first page said, "The Writings of Aristotle." "Who is Aristotle?" said Annie, sounding out the word. "I don't know," said Jack. He looked him up. "I'll look him up in the research book." He unhooked his bag from the saddle horn. Sand covered the book inside. He pulled out the research book and brushed it off. Then he pulled out Aristotle's, and he looked up Aristotle in the index. "Good, he's here," said Jack. He turned to the right page and read, "Aristotle lived in ancient Greece over 2,300 years ago. He is known as one of the greatest philosophers of all time. The word philosopher means lover of wisdom. Aristotle's works were introduced to the Western world by the Arabs in the Middle Ages. So Aristotle was a great lover of wisdom," said Annie. "I guess so," said Jack. "But I wonder why this book is such a treasure." "Wait a minute," said Annie. "Doesn't Merlin tell us we have to help the caliphs Baghdad spread wisdom to the world. Jack caught his breath. Yeah, he said, and if this is a book of Aristotle's writing, it must be full of wisdom. We have to get this book to the Caliph. That's our mission for Merlin. We better get going, said Annie. Jack and Annie pulled on the reins of their camels and clucked their tongues. Beauty and Cutie knelt in the sand, and Jack and Annie climbed on, leaving the broken box behind. Jack carefully packed the ancient book of Aristotle's wisdom and the research book into his bag. Then he hung the bag over his saddle horn. Which way, said Annie? Toward the rising sun in the east, said Jack. That's what Mamoon said. It's that way then, said Annie, pointing toward a bright blur in the hazy sky. Jack and Annie's camels headed into the dusty, glaring sun. We're following Merlin's second instruction now, said Annie. Ride through the dust and hot morning light. You're right, said Jack. As Jack and Annie traveled toward the east, the desert sands shimmered and sparkled with heat. The air clean, but still was no sign of the moon. Jack looked down to shield his eyes from the blurring sunlight. Exhausted, he closed his eyes. As Beauty swayed gently from side to side, Jack's head dropped forward. Suddenly he heard Annie shout, Jack, look! What, Mamoon? Said Jack, jerking awake. No, look, Annie. In the distance, Jack saw sunlit towers and domes shining against the clear blue sky. Oh, man, he whispered. Baghdad. Chapter 7. Behind the Third Wall. Let's hurry, said Annie. As Beauty and Cutie walked toward Baghdad, the loose sand of the desert changed to sun-baked earth. Then the hard earth changed to scrubby grass. Goats and sheep grazed in the grass, and farms dotted the countryside. It wasn't long before Jack and Annie came to a red clay path. The path led to a crossroad where many travelers were coming from different directions. They were all heading toward the shining city. Jack and Annie rode alongside boys driving sheep and farmers and donkey carts. They passed women with veils over their faces carrying pots on their shoulders. Jack kept looking for Mamoon, but he never saw him. Moving with the crowd, Beauty and Cutie clomped across the bridge. Rowboats and barges glided along the yellowish-brown river. On the other side of the river was a huge outdoor market with a maze of tents. The market seemed to be filled with people from many countries. The sharp smell of incense filled the air. Stalls were jammed with burlap sacks, baskets, and carpets. Shoe marks sat cross-legged, stitching shoes. Potters were bent over oven, baking earth-colored pots. Weavers sat at small looms, spinning silk. Brocade, paper, pearls, a merchant shouted. No thanks, Annie. Pigeon, parrots, another shouted at Jack. No thanks, she said. I love this place, Annie. What is it? I'll look it up, said Jack. He pulled out the research book and read. In the 9th century, trading for all over the world brought their goods to Baghdad to sell. Baghdad merchants traded paper, fine cloth, and jewelry for goods from Spain, India, Africa, China, Greece, and other lands. These goods were sold in a huge open-air market called a bazaar. Oh, so a bazaar is sort of like a small mall, said Jack. It's a lot better than a mall, said Annie. Let's get off and look around. We don't have time to shop, said Jack. We have to finish our mission. He pulled out Merlin's letter and rhyme and read. Find a horse on a dome, the one who sees all, in the heart of the city behind the third wall. It sounds like we pass 3 walls and then we come to a horse, said Jack. We better keep going. He put the book and letter away. Beauty and Cutie ambled through the noisy bazaar. When they left the bazaar, they came to a curved brick wall. Running along the base of the wall was a muddy moat. Look, that must be the first wall, Stanley. Cool, said Jack. Jack and Annie rode and the 2 camels over an arched bridge that crossed the moat. They passed through a gate with double doors. On the other side of the wall was a busy avenue lined with buildings. As the camels moved slowly in and out of the crowd, Jack pulled out the research book. Swaying from side to side, he read to Annie. During its golden age, Baghdad had good hospitals. The city was also known for its excellent police system and building public schools along with its many libraries and stores, and the zoo with 100 lions. I'd like to visit those lions, said Annie. We don't have time now, said Jack. The camels clomped down the busy avenue until they came to green fields. Look, there's a second wall, said Annie. Bordering the field was another wall. It had curved too, but was much taller than the first. It looked like it was at least 100 feet high. There were guards at the gate, but they didn't seem to be checking any of the people passing through. Act normal, Jack advised Annie. Don't attract their attention. Jack and Annie joined a stream of people passing through the gate. Beyond the second wall was another grand avenue, and at the end of the wide cobbled road was another green field. Look, the third wall, said Annie. The third wall was even taller than the second. Again, people were passing freely through its gate. This part of our mission is easy, said Annie. Yes, said Jack, but we still have to find the horse on the dome and then find the caliph and get him to meet with us. Beauty and Cutie ambled through the gate of the third wall, carrying Jack and Annie into the heart of the Baghdad. A palace loomed over them. Its roof was glittering green dome. At the top of the dome stood the statue of a horse. Yay, the horse who sees all, said Annie. All but the caliph lives in that palace. Let's follow those people going inside. She pointed to a stream of people entering the passageway outside the palace. Jack and Annie rode under the arch and into a beautiful garden. The warm breeze smelled of flowers. They rode down a path bordered by date palms until they came to a courtyard where boys were playing ball. Near the courtyard was a stable where camels were. Looks like we'll have to go the rest by foot, said Jack. Yay! Yeah, I guess Beauty and Cutie can stay there, said Annie, pointing to the stables. Jack and Annie rode into the stables. They clacked their tongues and Cutie knelt. As Jack reached for his leather bag, a ball rolled into the stable. Annie picked up and stepped outside. Jack followed her. Here, shouted a young boy with curly black hair. He was holding out his hand. Annie threw the ball to him. The boy caught it. He grinned at Annie's good throw. Who are you? He called. Where are you from? Before Jack could say anything, Annie crossed to the boy and Jack hurried after her. I'm Annie, and this is my brother Jack, said Annie. We're from Frog Creek, Pennsylvania. Why have you come to Baghdad? The boy said. We have to meet with the caliph, said Annie. The boys and his friends laughed. What's so funny, said Annie. Our caliph is the most powerful person in the world, said the boy. He does not have time to visit with children. That's what everyone keeps saying, said Annie. But we're here in a very important mission. Annie, interrupted Jack. Come on. I left my bag back in the stables. He waved to the boys. See you guys later. Let's go, Annie. Annie started to leave with Jack. When you discover that the caliph will not meet with you, come back and play ball with us, called the curly-haired boy. Annie stopped. Don't worry, she called back. He'll meet with us. We're special. Annie, come on, said Jack. Why are you special? Shouted the boy. For one thing, we just saved a precious treasure from bandits in a sandstorm in the desert, said Annie. For another, Annie, Jack said sternly. He grabbed her arm. Come on, he pulled Annie away. As they headed toward the stables, Jack shook his head. Don't say stuff like that, he said. Why not, said Annie? Because it's bragging, said Jack. It makes other kids feel bad. Even if you're special, you don't have to. Oh no, cried Annie. She covered her mouth with her hands. What, said Jack, following her shocked gaze. Jack's leather bag lay open at Beauty's feet. It was open. Beside it was the torn leather cover of the Aristotle's book. Wet pages hung in shreds from Beauty's mouth as she happily chewed the precious treasure. Chapter 8. Room of the Tree. No, cried Jack. He ran to Beauty and yanked hunks of paper from her mouth. Annie dropped to her knees and picked up the torn pieces strewn around the camel's big feet. The treasure's ruined, moaned Annie. Jack was stunned. I should have left my bag here, he said. No, it's my fault. I should have gone and bragged to those kids, wailed Annie. I should have acted more humble, like Merlin said. Annie sounded like she might cry. It's okay, said Jack, but he knew he wasn't. Their book was destroyed. They'd failed in their mission. Maybe we can fix it, said Annie. Jack shook his head. No, we can't, he said. It's completely destroyed. It can't be fixed. Annie looked up. What did you just say? She said. It can't be fixed, said Jack. Annie, a big grin crossed Annie's face. Right, it can't be fixed, she said. Help me gather all the pieces. Why, said Jack. Had Annie gone nuts? Just do it, quick, said Annie. Jack and Annie rushed around the stables, gathering up all the torn pages. Now pile everything over there on top of the cover and give the book to me, said Annie. What book, said Jack? The rhyme book, said Annie. Oh, said Jack. Right. He reached into his shoulder bag and pulled out Teddy and Kathleen's book of magic rhymes. He opened the book and read down the list. Here it is. Mend what cannot be mended, he said. That's the one, said Annie. Jack flipped through the pages until he found the rhyme. He held up the book so he and Annie could both see. Standing in the shaft of sunlight, Jack read in a loud, clear voice, Heal what is broken beyond repair. Annie read the second line, Avi Bri Al Fanny Mare. The paper bits fluttered. They began to swirl off the floor. They swirled up and around as if they were caught in a small tornado. The tornado captured all the torn pieces in its funnel and twisted them together. The papers swirled into a blur of blinding light. Jack shielded his eyes and heard a loud woof. When he looked up, the bright tornado had vanished. Lying on the floor of the stables in front of Jack and Annie was the ancient book. Holding his breath, Jack carefully picked up the treasure. He opened the leather book cover. Oh, man, he whispered. Aristotle's priceless words of wisdom were neatly written on the yellow pages. There was no sign of a rip or tear anywhere. Thank goodness, breathed Annie. Yes, said Jack. So what do we do now, said Annie? I don't know, said Jack. What's the next thing Merlin tells us to do? He pulled out Merlin's leather and read, Beneath birds who sing in the room of the tree, greet a friend you once knew and a new friend to be. What's that mean? Said Jack. Suddenly, Jack heard someone behind him. He and Annie turned. A girl was standing in the doorway of the stable. She wore a white gown. Her hair and face were hidden by a veil. Hi, said Annie. Who are you? I am a servant of the palace, the girl whispered. Come. She motioned for them to follow her. Let's go, Annie said to Jack. Where is she taking us? Asked Jack. And why is she whispering? I don't know, said Annie, but I feel like we should follow her. Okay, said Jack. He picked up the book of wisdom and the magic book of rhymes into his backpack. He slung the bag over his shoulder and followed Annie and the servant girl out of the stables. The three of them walked through the courtyard and through the palace doors. They walked down a white candlelit hallway over a thick woven carpet. At the end of the hallway was a tall curved door. A boy servant stood by the door. He wore baggy trousers and a long shirt. His face was almost completely hidden by his headcloth. He did not speak or look at them. The servant girl stood close to Jack and Annie. In her strange, whispery voice, she said, In front of the chair, bow to the floor. Do not look up and do not speak until you are spoken to. But what? Said Jack. Go quickly, whispered the servant girl. The boy servant pulled open the heavy door. The servant girl pushed them into the room. Wait, said Jack. But the boy servant closed the door behind them, leaving Jack and Annie alone. Jack, look, we're here, said Annie. The room of the tree. Jack turned around. A giant tree stood in the center of the room. It had silver leaves that fluttered as if blown by the wind. Mechanical golden birds sang, tweet, tweet, from the silver branches. Beneath the strange tree was an empty black chair, jeweled and sparkles in the shiny wood. We're in the right place, Danny, she quoted from Merlin's leather. Beneath birds who sing in the room of the tree, greet a friend you once knew and a new friend to be. Another mystery solved, said Annie. Not really, said Jack. Where are the two friends? I don't know, but we better bow in front of the chair like the servant girl told us to, said Annie. Jack and Annie knelt on the shiny front of the shiny black chair. They bowed their heads to the floor. Jack ripped his bag with the treasure inside. Remember what else, she said, and he reminded Jack. Don't look up and don't speak until you are spoken to. But there's no one here, said Jack. He felt foolish bowing in front of a chair and listening to the chirping of mechanical birds. Why are we doing this, he wondered. The door opened with a low creaking sound. Jack squeezed his eyes shut, heard footsteps moving past them. How did you get into the throne room? A deep, gruff voice asked. A servant girl brought us here, said Annie. And why have you come? Asked the voice. We have a priceless treasure to give to the Caliph of Baghdad, said Jack, keeping his head down. It's a book of wisdom. Jack fumbled in his bag and pulled out the book. He kept his eyes tightly shut as he held the book up toward the voice. There was a long silence. We hoped it will help the Caliph spread wisdom to the world, said Annie. How did you come to be in possession of this book? The man asked. We were helping a friend, said Annie, and we got separated in a sandstorm. Then I suppose you brought this book to Baghdad to gain a reward, said the man. No, we didn't, said Jack. It was our mission to help the Caliph. Surely you must be seeking some payment in exchange for this treasure, the man said. Would you not like a precious perfumes gathered from the sweetest flowers on earth? No thanks, said Annie. Rubies as large as hen's eggs? The man asked. No thanks, said Jack. You would not accept this book's weight in gold? The man said. We don't need a reward, really, said Jack. Since we like the book so much, why don't you just tell the Caliph to use his gold and rubies to buy more of them, said Annie. Again there was silence. Then the man cleared his throat. Then he spoke. His voice was gentler and familiar sounding. Look at me, Jack and Annie, he said. Jack opened his eyes. He slowly lifted his head. First he saw gleaming gold slippers, then a long robe with gold trimmed, then a familiar face. Jack gasped. He couldn't believe it. The man wasn't a scary person at all. The man was Mamoon. Chapter 9, House of Wisdom. Mamoon, said Annie. Yes, said Mamoon. I am very glad to see that you have safely arrived in Baghdad. We're glad you're safe too, said Annie. We were worried about you. I looked everywhere for you after the sandstorm, said Mamoon. Finally, I gave up my search and returned sadly to Baghdad. I assume you found your family. Oh, sure, we found them. We found them, of course, said Annie. And we found your book, said Jack. When we couldn't find you, we decided that we should give the book to the Caliph. Mamoon smiled. You still do not understand, he said. Understand what, said Annie? I am Caliph Abdallah al-Mamoon. You're the Caliph, said Annie. But how, what, Jack stammered. For many years I have wanted a book of Aristotle's wisdom, explained the Caliph. I heard that such a book had been found in the city of Damascus, and I made arrangements to acquire it for my library. It was supposed important that it arrived here safely. I have long wished to travel again through the desert as I did when I was a boy. So I disguised myself as a humble merchant and made the journey. Me and my fellow travelers never knew my true identity. Wow, said Jack. You have shown me that you have a great respect for books and learning, said the Caliph Mamoon. And you have also proven you have humble hearts. Before you journey to your family, I want to show you a very special place. I call it the House of Wisdom. The House of Wisdom, breathed Jack. That sounds great. It is my hope that the world will indeed find it great, the Caliph said. Come. He started to leave the room. Jack and Annie rose from the floor and hurried after him. Carrying the ancient book of Aristotle, the Caliph led Jack and Annie out of the room of the tree. His gold-trimmed robe billowed about him as he swept down the corridor. Every person he passed bowed low to the floor. Another mystery solved, Annie said to Jack. She quoted from Merlin's letter. Greet a friend you once knew and a new friend to be. Both friends are the same person, said Annie. Mamoon from the desert and the Caliph Abdullah al-Mamoon. Right, said Jack, smiling. The Caliph led Jack and Annie out of the front doors of the palace. In the courtyard stood two camels with long poles attached to their saddles. Resting on top of the poles was a small carriage, decorated with gold tassels and brass bells. Servants helped Jack, Annie, and Caliph Abdallah al-Mamoon into the strange little carriage. Bells jingled as the camels began to move slowly through the courtyard. The Caliph opened the tiny shutters to let in air and sunlight. Jack looked out. Everyone bowed as the royal carriage passed by. The boys playing ball and the gardeners weeding flower beds, the women carrying pots. Jack had lots of questions about the House of Wisdom, but now that he knew their friend Mamoon was the mighty Caliph, he felt shy. Even Annie seemed to be at a loss for words as they rode past the date palm trees in the palace garden. We are here, said the Caliph as the camels came to a stop. He helped Jack and Annie out of the carriage. Then he led them up the steps of a large brick building. Welcome to the House of Wisdom, said the Caliph, a learning center for the entire world. What happens here? Asked Jack. Come, I will show you. The Caliph escorted Jack and Annie through the front door and down a wide hallway. We have a laboratory for discovering new medicines, said Mamoon, and an observatory for viewing the stars and planets. But this is my favorite room of all. The Caliph stopped before an arched doorway. He opened the door and led Jack and Annie into a huge silent room. This is the library, he said in a hushed voice. Even I must be very quiet. Late afternoon light slanted down from high open windows, streaming over bookshelves and colorful carpets. Men read at long tables. When the readers looked up and saw the Caliph, they all started to rise. Please, continue your work. Do not mind us, the Caliph said softly. The men sat down and returned to their reading and writing. The Caliph pointed to a bearded man sitting by a window hunched over a pile of papers. The man was writing furiously. This is Al-Khwarizmi, whispered the Caliph. He is a truly great mathematician. He has perfected the Indian way of writing numbers. The Caliph pointed to the numbers written on a board on the wall. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. We call those the Arabic numerals, he said. Arabic numerals, said Jack. Yes, said the Caliph. Jack whispered to Annie. We use the Arabic numerals too. They must have come from that guy. The Caliph pointed to another man reading by the window. He is Al-Kindi. He is perhaps the most brilliant scientist and thinker in the world, whispered the Caliph. But he is very humble. He believes knowledge cannot belong to one person of country. It belongs to all. The world grows wise only when wisdom is shared. I agree. That is why I built this house. I agree too, whispered Annie. Me too, said Jack. The scientists and scholars from many countries come here to read and study and share their knowledge, whispered the Caliph. We have thousands of books. They have all been copied by hand. By hand? Said Annie. That's a lot of writing. What kind of books? Asked Jack. Books of history, mathematics, geography, and medicine, said the Caliph. But we also have a very special book of fantasy and wonder. The Caliph took a large, thick book down from a shelf. He rested it on the table and turned the pages to show Jack and Annie. The book was filled with fancy writing and beautiful illustrations. There were pictures of Aladdin and Ali Baba, magic lamps and flying carpets. "Oh, tales from the Arabian Nights," said Annie. "You know these stories." "We know these stories." "You do? Wonderful," said the Caliph with a smile. "It seems someone from our land has traveled to yours and shares our stories. Perhaps someone will soon bring stories from our land back to us. That is the great power of a book, no?" "Yes," said Annie, and I hope your land will hear of this book too someday," said Caliph. He held up the book of Aristotle's writing. "After I have read it, I will have it copied so I can share its wisdom with the world. Thank you for helping me." "Sure," said Jack modestly. "That was our mission. I fear I must now return to my duties," said the Caliph. "But please stay in the library. Read until you must go and meet with your family and come back someday and visit." "We'll try," said Jack. "Goodbye, Annie." "Goodbye, Jack." "Goodbye, Mamoon," said Annie. The mighty Caliph gave a warm smile and a deep bow. Then he left Jack and Annie in his wondrous library. Chapter 10. Before the moon rises. Jack and Annie looked around the big room. The scholars and scientists were all deep in their reading. "I can't believe Mamoon is the Caliph," whispered Jack. "Remember that life is full of surprises," Annie repeated from Merlin's leather. "Yeah, and return to the treehouse before the moon rises," Jack finished. "I almost forgot that part," said Annie. "Me too," said Jack. "Shh," one of the scholars and scientists said. "Sorry," said Annie. Jack and Annie looked up at the window. The pink sky was the sun would be setting soon. "We have to get to the treehouse," whispered Annie, "before the moon rises." "I know," said Jack, "but how?" He felt a moment of panic. The treehouse is really far away, he thought. If we traveled on Beauty and Cutie, it would take a whole another day and night to get there. And what about sandstorms and bandits? Jack looked around. She smiled at Jack. "Magic," she mouthed. Jack caught his breath. They both looked around to see if any of the scholars or scientists were watching. They aren't. Jack quietly slipped Ted and Kathleen's book of magic rhymes out of his bag. He and Annie turned their backs to the others and opened the book to the table of contents. Annie pointed, "Turn into ducks." Jack gave her a look. Annie pointed to "Fly through the air." "Yes," said Jack. "Shh," said one of the scholars. Jack turned to the page. He held up the book so that they could both see. Jack said the first line of the rhyme. "Sail through the sky where you wish to go." Annie said the second. "Sawney for Sawney row." "You must be quiet or you will have to leave the library," one of the scholars said grouchily. "Don't worry, we're going," said Annie. The wind blew through the tall open window, fluttering the pages of the Arabian Nights books. The scholars and scientists grabbed their papers before they blew away. The wind picked up a corner of the small carpet Jack and Annie were standing on. The carpet rippled. Jack and Annie fell forward as they tried to stand on the carpet lifted off the floor. "Oh!" cried all the scholars and scientists. The carpet began floating up. It rose above the long tables. It rose above the shelves of books. Everyone jumped out of their chairs and scrambled out of the way, shouting, "Help! Move! Watch out! Impossible! What is happening?" "Fly!" called Annie. The carpet floated to the tall open window and glided out of the House of Wisdom. Chilly air blew against Jack and Annie, their headcloths flapping wildly as they clung to the end of the carpet and sailed through the sky. "This is great!" cried Jack. "Really great!" shouted Annie. The carpet soared over the House of Wisdom, over the Caliph riding back to his palace in his carriage, and over the camel stables. The carpet zipped over the green dome with the horse on top. It flew over the courtyard where the boys were still playing ball, over the third wall, and past the green fields and the grand avenue. The carpet flew over the second wall, the houses and hospitals and hundreds of lions in the zoo. It flew over the first wall, the arched bridge and the moat. The carpet zoomed over the bazaar with the maze of stalls, the shoe markets, potters, and weavers. It sailed over the road to Baghdad. Below, Jack Nanny saw the men driving donkey carts, the boys leading sheep, the women carrying pots. The carpets flew faster and faster and faster over the river to the grazing sheep in the dunes with the whistling sands, and over the red glowing desert toward the setting sun and the oasis. In the middle of nowhere, the magic carpet slid smoothly into the scrubby grass near the small spring and the thorn bushes, near the date palms and the rope ladder. The desert looked as if it were on fire with golden red light. Jack felt giddy. That was so fast, he said. I can't believe we made it all the way here. No kidding, Sandy. The magic must have helped us stay on. Jack and Annie tried to stand. They teetered and fell against each other. Steady, said Annie, giggling. You okay? Perfect, said Jack. He put on his bag over his shoulder and staggered off the carpet. Then he and Annie headed over to the tallest date palm. Jack pulled out the rope from behind the trunk and they climbed up. When they got inside the treehouse, Jack looked out the window. He glanced out the window one last time. The sun was gone. The carpet looked small and ordinary in the shadows beneath the palm trees. The desert looked vast and silent and lonely. A thin crescent moon had appeared in the sky. Return to the treehouse before the moon rises, said Jack. That was our last instruction from Merlin, said Annie. We're all done. Jack looked down at Merlin's letter. He pointed to the words Jack, Nanny, and Frog Creek. I wish we could go there, he said. The wind stirred above. The treehouse started spinning, spun faster and faster, and everything was still, absolutely still. The Frog Creek woods were chilly in afternoon air. Jack and Nanny were dressed in their jeans and jackets again. Jack's shoulder bag was a backpack. Good trip, Jack said simply. Annie nodded. Really cool, she said. I guess we should get home, said Jack. I have lots of homework to finish. Leave the research book, but don't forget to take Teddy and Kathleen's book for safekeeping, said Annie. Jack reached into his backpack and pulled out the book on the golden age of Baghdad and placed it on the treehouse floor. Then he threw on his backpack over his shoulder and climbed down the ladder. Annie followed. Together they walked through the early spring woods. They passed Merlin's second test, said Annie. We helped spread wisdom to the world. That's a pretty big deal. Be humble, Jack reminded her. Well, I guess Teddy and Kathleen's book did all the hard stuff, Annie said humbly. I miss them, said Jack. Me too, said Annie. But I think they might have been with us in Baghdad. What do you mean, said Jack? Remember the servant girl and the boy who took us to the Caliph, said Annie? They were sort of came out of nowhere, and we never actually got to see their faces, did we? No, said Jack. You think? And he shrugged. Maybe, said Annie. Jack smiled and took a deep breath. Maybe, he said softly. 2 missions and 5 rhymes left, said Annie. I hope Merlin sends for us again soon. Not too soon, said Jack. I need to do my homework first. Annie laughed. Math with Arabic numerals, said Annie. Right, said Jack. And maybe tomorrow we'll go to the library and see if we can find any books on Aristotle's wisdom. Good idea, said Annie. A cool spring breeze rustled the trees and Jack and Annie hurried toward home. More facts about Baghdad. Baghdad is an ancient city that lies between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers. Long ago, the area was called Mesopotamia, which means between the rivers. Today, this land is called Uruk, and Baghdad is its capital. The character of Mamun in his book was inspired by 2 caliphs of Baghdad in the 9th century, Harun al-Rashid and his son Abdallah al-Mamun, often spelled as Al-Mamun. It is said that Harun al-Rashid sometimes disguised himself and went to the bazaar to listen to his people. The world of al-Rashid was the inspiration for the collecting stories known as 1001 Nights or Tales from the Arabian Nights. Abdallah al-Mamun was the youngest son of Harun al-Rashid. He carried on his father's work by honoring the art and scientists. He also founded the House of Wisdom in Baghdad. The House of Wisdom was home to scholars from all over the world, Eastern world. Two important thinkers who studied that there were Al-Kindi, who was called the philosopher of the Arabians, and the mathematician Al-Khwarizmi, who introduced algebra. Many ancient writings were stored and translated in the House of Wisdom. Some of the most important writings included the work of the Greek philosopher Aristotle. Aristotle's teaching helped lay the foundation for modern scientists. Harun al-Rashid helped start a golden age in which Baghdad would be an important center of learning and culture for the next 400 years. In 1258, the city was destroyed by Mongol invaders. So I hope you enjoyed this book. Join me for another treehouse adventure. Or, if you like Who Would Win, listen to Ultimate Ocean Rumble, Ultimate Shark Rumble, or any more I post or upload. So, bye. Hope I can read to you again soon. Love it. You are awesome.